Hey, I'm Al from Dino Flash Videos, and this video I'm going to tell you 5 things I hate about the 991 Turbo. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the 991 Turbo. It's a great car, and I'm not nitpicking here. It has a lot of amazing qualities, so don't think I'm like some guy who's complaining about his porn star girlfriend because she wants too much sex. No, there are some things about this car that I really don't like, so let's go over them. First of all, right now I'm driving on kind of a bumpy road. All right, I don't know if this is picking up on YouTube too well. This is kind of like a neighborhood street. I have this on the comfort mode, right? And it's a rough ride. This is the softest ride you can get. And so the number one is the ride quality sucks. Like, you can just feel it. It's like bumpy. This is not even that bumpy a road, but I don't know if you can pick it up. The car is just like bumpy. It's just uncomfortable. And we're on the comfort mode. I didn't put it on Sport or Sport Plus. So, and this, with the comfort mode, the steering, right? The steering angle with my hands is like really vague and mushy, so I don't get good feel. Now, if I put this thing on Sport Plus, right, then I kind of get a good feel with the steering wheel, right? I'm kind of feeling like a little bit better, you know, my feel of the steering. But look at this little tiny bump I'm going to go over. It feels like I'm going over bricks. I mean, it's just, it's like terrible. The ride quality is just horrible when you're going over these little bumps, like a little manhole cover. It feels like I went over rocks. I mean, it's really a rough ride. But you got the steering response here. It feels a little more responsive, like maybe how it should feel. I'm not a big fan of the electric steering rack, right? I don't really feel the electric steering rack. It's not for me. I have the 997 Turbo that has the hydraulic steering, which was like light years ahead of this. This electric steering is really bad. So, you know, you really don't get a lot of modulation here with this electric steering. It's either, you know, soft, which is what I have it on now, the comfort mode. It's really soft. It's kind of like a boat feeling to me. I mean, yeah, if you're coming out of like a, you know, Macan, maybe it feels okay. But for a sports car that costs $200,000, is this the way you want your steering to feel all the time? No. I mean, granted, this is not a GT3, you know, for the track, but still, I think the steering should feel better. So I don't like the steering or the ride quality on this car. This is supposed to be like a maybe almost akin to like a grand touring car for an executive, but it doesn't have the ride quality. The 997 in comparison has a much better ride quality on, you know, it just has 2 modes. It has like regular and sport. This has like sport plus, and then it has this, you know, chassis control, you know, like basically keeps the car flat. You know, you can go, when you go on that, it goes to sport chassis or it goes to normal chassis. Well, either way, normal chassis is ride rough, and sport chassis is like, forget about it. It's like, that's why I call it like chiropractic mode, you know. So it's not really good. I drove recently a Ferrari 458 and a Ferrari 488, and they have like a bumpy road mode on the steering wheel. Those cars, not only did they handle, the steering felt so much more precise and go-kart like than this car, but they also just were really soft on the bumpy road mode, you know. It just really felt good, you know. Don't get me wrong, this car goes around this corner great, the turning is great, but it's soft. The steering wheel is soft, and it's vague, and it's mushy. You know, with a sports car, you need precision. You need that control. Now, here's problem number 2. The thing I hate about this car, which I really hate, okay? And you're gonna hear it right now. It's the sound. This car, okay? You know, it's supposed to be kind of like a sporty car. So right now I'm gonna get on it a little bit, okay? And listen to the sound. I know, it sounds kind of like a vacuum cleaner. I don't know. Does that sound like a sports car? Does it sound anything exciting to you? When when I was getting on it. You know, did it sound like a Corvette or a Mustang? No. Definitely not like a Ferrari. But you know, this car retails, this car right here, the sticker price was like $204,000, and the car basically sounds like nothing. It doesn't even sound like a BMW. Let's try it again, okay? Here, I'm gonna hit it again, okay? So this thing has some type of a speaker that comes into the car that transmits sound inside the car, okay? So let's listen. I mean, is that an exciting sound? My 997 had the same problem. As a matter of fact, the 997 perhaps sounded even worse. But you know, I put an exhaust on that, and even with the 3-inch exhaust and turbos, it still doesn't sound. It doesn't have the sound. Like, you're never gonna get a Porsche Boxer motor to give you that sexy sound like you're driving like a sports car. It just doesn't have a good sound. You know, when you put turbos on it, it doesn't sound decent. My first Porsche car was a Carrera 2, and that car, when an exhaust sounded decent, you know, decent. But this car here, the ride is bad, and the sound is even worse. It's just dull, you know, dull. Anyway, I don't know what the solution is. Maybe a different kind of car. The next thing that I hate about the 991 Turbo is how low the seat is, how hard it is to get in and out of for a car that's supposed to be like a daily driver supercar, right? This is my daily driver, right? So like I have a 997. That car is so easy to get in and out of. The seat's so much more comfortable. You can just, you know, ease in and ease out. This car is like so low to the ground, and the seat is so narrow. You can see this is the standard seats that come, the 18-way seats. Yeah, they're good when you're at the track, right? Because you can kind of like clamp down your butt a little bit, and on the sides. Recently, I had the opportunity, like I said, to drive a Ferrari 458 and 488, the sport seats and the regular seats on the Ferrari, and it's about the same as this, you know. And this is supposed to be a Porsche you can drive every day, and the Ferrari, you think it'd be more uncomfortable, you know. If anything, this is harder for me to get into. I mean, this is me getting into it. I kind of like have to brace myself, you know, getting down into the car, you know, and I'm way down. You know, sure, when I get in the car, I got lots of leg room, you know, lots of headroom. So it means the big car inside, but it's hard to get in and out of. So, you know, for someone who's fantasizing about one of these cars in your future, you're dreaming about it, you're thinking about it, you know, is it practical to use every day? I don't know. I'll leave that to you to decide. It has all the creature comforts you could want. You know, it has a great, infotainment system. It has a great sound system. It's got the Burmeister sound. It's got a great climate control. I mean, you don't have the problems like the Ferrari, where if you don't plug in the tender, the battery's gonna go dead on you. You don't have those issues. You could leave this car alone for 2, 3, 4 weeks and then just jump in it and go. It's been very reliable so far. I had like one little heating solenoid valve that went bad. Other than that, I drove it for about 5,000 miles so far, beating it pretty hard like I do. So yeah, I'd say reason number 3 thing I hate about this car is the seats are really low, uncomfortable seats, hard to get in and out of. It's not really a great daily driving car. I would think that since they have the GT3, you know, and the GT2, the track orientated cars, they keep the sportier seats more, you know, inclined towards those cars, and put a more comfortable seat in this one, kind of like the one they had in the 997 Turbo. The 997 Turbo, that car is truly a daily driving car you can drive every day. Let me just point something out to you too, for anyone who's interested in this stuff. I don't know who is, you know. Obviously, I guess you're getting the you know, the inclination that I kind of like the 997 turbo a lot better than the 991. Listen, just because something's newer doesn't mean it's better. All right, this car here has ceramic brakes and it's got the PDK transmission, which undoubtedly around a long racetrack like the Nürburgring, right, not having to shift, right, you know, hundreds of times back and forth, right, is definitely going to give you a speed advantage, right? So I just have some information here that I got off the internet. I just wanted to share this with you. So in 2008, when the 997 turbo came out, just a stock car, they set a lap time around the Nürburgring of 7 minutes and 38 seconds, which is pretty fast, right? And that's a car you can get in with no problems. The steering is amazing on it. It has probably I'd say a good 60 or so horsepower less in this car. And you're driving with a manual transmission, right? So you'd think that this car would be a lot faster, right? It has supposedly a better chassis, it has ceramic brakes. No, this car 6 years later in February of 2014 is 7 minutes and 34 seconds, only 6 seconds faster around the Nürburgring. So you'd have to ask yourself, right, if you took this car with standard brakes and a manual transmission, right, it would not even be able to keep up with a 997 turbo. That's interesting, right? The 997 turbo is a fast car, and it's the end of the manual transmission. So let's move on to reason number 4. Reason number 4 why I don't like this car, the 991 turbo, and why I love the 997 is this transmission. Okay, you know, a lot of people think that when you have this transmission, that this transmission is kind of like, can be put in manual mode over here, right, and you can shift it, you know, kind of like a manual transmission, or you can use, some of them have the paddle shifter behind the steering wheel. I happen to have these little things, which are kind of cool because you can either shift from either hand, right, when you're at the track. The Ferrari, you know, I think it kind of has a disadvantage because the paddles are only behind the steering column, right? So let's say you're doing an aggressive corner, right, and you're keeping your hands on the wheel. How are you gonna grab a gear with the Ferrari? That's gonna be kind of hard, right? If you kind of have your hand up here, right, and you're going around a corner, right, how are you gonna grab the shifter over here and make a shift in the middle of the corner? I don't know about that. I guess you get used to it. I think this is the place for the shifter right here, right? Because this is where I kind of keep my hand, so it's easy to make a shift either way. But here's the problem: I never used the manual transmission feature because this transmission, this so-called manual transmission, is not a manual transmission. I'm going to show you why right now. Okay, I'm in manual mode and I'm in first gear at this moment. Okay, and I'm going to show you what happens. Let's say I'm at the racetrack and I'm in a precision driving situation right now, and I want to stay in first gear and maintain myself in first gear, like the time I went up to Lime Rack track, and my instructor said, okay, you know, I don't feel too comfortable with your driving. Oh, there's an M3 behind me. He's probably looking for a race, but he doesn't want to race me. Anyway, you know, he said, I want you to stay in fourth gear around the entire track. And just, so here we are, we're in fourth gear, and I'm in manual mode, right? And I floor it. And watch what it just did. It shifted down. Did you see that? Let's try that again. So I put it in fourth gear in manual mode. I want to hold it in fourth gear. Okay, I'm in manual mode. And I floor it. And I shift down. Look what it does. It goes down to third gear. Let's go back to fourth gear. I'm in fourth gear. I need gas. I'm in fourth gear and I floor it. And it goes down to second gear. What's up with that? What kind of manual transmission is that? Come on, man. Is that manual transmission? Give me a break. I mean, this is not a sports transmission. It's not happening. It's not a sports transmission. This is kind of like the transmission here is taking control. If I got it in manual mode and I'm in fourth gear and I want to floor it in fourth gear, it should stay in fourth gear. It shouldn't be shifting for me. It should be letting me take manual control. That's what it's for, manual mode, right? But this car, basically, when you're using the PDK, the best thing to do is just put it in automatic mode. Go to sport mode, sport plus, right? Opens up an exhaust valve, makes it a little bit louder, starts piping some music into the car, some fake exhaust music. I don't know if you can hear that. That's without it. That's with it. And then basically just let the car shift for you. That's the best way to do it, because this thing shifts faster than you can shift, and basically you have no control over what this thing's going to do. So just let it shift for you and just go down the track, hit the gas and the brake, and let this thing do all the shifting for you. It's not like, I don't know, I haven't really experimented like at a racetrack with a Ferrari, or a Lamborghini to see how they do the paddle shifting transmissions, to see if you can have more control over them or not. But I can only imagine that those cars, that when you have a vehicle with the dual clutch transmission, that they're going to give you the ability to make the shifts how you want it, and it's not going to shift for you. This is my assessment. Not happy with the transmission. You know what? I'll stay with my 997, and you can see that the 997, as I showed you, you can check it out on Wikipedia, whatever. You can see that the 997 is only 4 seconds slower around the Nürburgring than this car, with all this, driver control, all this nonsense. The 997 doesn't have anything. It just has like a sport mode that makes the suspension dampening a little tighter. It doesn't have this. It doesn't have any of that stuff. It doesn't have the spoiler that blows up in the front that keeps the air from going into the car. It doesn't have any of that, and it's almost as fast. So 4 seconds is nothing. I just rather have a manual transmission car. I can control myself and shift it myself. This is nice when you're commuting to work in traffic. You're dealing with traffic. It's okay. Or if you don't know how to drive a stick shift, this is good. But if you really want to be in a performance oriented car, I don't think it's for you. That's reason number 4 why I hate this car. Reason number 5 why I hate this car is because it's just not that fast. And I'm going to explain something to you about this car that's very interesting. Is this car 0 to 60, right? Is one of the fastest cars you can buy. It's right up there, a little bit slower than the Bugatti Veyron. And I think it's just about faster than anything else. The only reason why that is because of the dynamics of this vehicle. It's got an amazing all-wheel drive system. It's got a lot of things in here. The display system is pretty cool, but there you go. There's the torque split. Unlike the 997, which had a limit of how much of the torque could be vectored to the front, because of the dynamics, it had a viscous coupler, right? So a limited amount of horsepower can be transferred to the front tires on a 997. So especially once you start to modify it, it's really like a rear-wheel drive car. So when you really start to launch it hard and get on it, then you see how rough this car is riding here on these bumps? I don't know if you could tell, it's just really rough. This is kind of like a broken road. I'm on comfort mode. It's like a really rough car. It's just uncomfortable. It's not pleasant to drive. If you like a really rough car, then by all means it's for you. But if you have a 997, then you realize just how slow this car is, and how bumpy it is and how uncomfortable it is, because the 997 is just as fast, especially just as fast around the Nürburgring, and it's a lot more comfortable. 997 is, I feel like I'm driving a Cadillac. I'm going to take the 997 out and make another video. Matter of fact, I have a concept with a good friend of mine, Nick Murray, who has a YouTube channel where we're working about the possibility of taking my 2 cars over to him and doing a comparison, as he makes really nice videos. So we're maybe going to make a comparison video of the 997 versus the 991. We've been talking about that, so maybe that'd be an interesting video. So he's going to drive one, I'm going to drive the other. I don't know, maybe we'll race them. Who knows? The 997 is going to win. Anyway, so back to the point about the speed. So this car can really send a lot of torque to the front wheels, and the engine is kind of like in front of the rear axle, with the entire engine sitting over the axle in the back and with giant tires on the back. So it's really set up for a launch. Now with this PDK transmission, all right, what happens when you put this car in launch mode, right? It's really a launching machine. I think Road and Track or Car and Driver or one of them did like 50 launches back to back on this car, you know, one after the other, and nothing would break. So basically, when you want to launch the car, you put it in Sport Plus, right? Or Sport Plus here, right? And you step your foot on the brake. Now it says launch control activate. Now I'm at 5,500 RPM, making boost. If I were to drop the hammer on that, which I'm not going to do, because you know what? You know why I'm not going to do it? I'm going to tell you why. Because I don't want to go to the chiropractor next week. I'm being honest with you. Every time I launch this car, it launches, you know, 0 to 60 so hard that it tweaks my back. I mean, it's ridiculous how fast this car gets off the line. I don't even want to do it. I mean, if I'm going to the racetrack, which I'm going to do, I'm going to make a video. I'm going to go to the racetrack and see how fast this car will go. I'm sure it'll get a great time at the track. But here's the deal: once you hit 60 miles an hour, this car is like a dog, right? If you check out the video of reason number 1, where I'm showing you or reason number 2, which I'm showing you the engine sound, and I'm showing you some pulls on the highway, and you see how fast this car is accelerating, it's not moving that fast. Once it gets going 0 to 60, all the acceleration records and all the time that this car gets is because of the initial acceleration. You know, at being an ex-drag racer, you know, everyone knows that your 60 foot is what makes the time slip, right? So the initial, you know, 20 or 30 feet on this car is phenomenal, right? But the rest is really not that impressive, right? So that's I really don't like that about this car. For the money that you're spending, you know, it's a car that retails for $204,000. You know, I feel the performance is just lacking. I mean, sure, it's got that one trick pony where it can launch that incredible launch, you know, over and over again every time. If you're going to race somebody at a red light, you're going to get them. But if you're on the highway on a roll, you know, you're trying to race somebody, you know, there's a lot of cars that are going to whoop your ass. For example, you know, recently, like I said, I drove a Ferrari 488 stock. You know, those cars will destroy this car, you know, after 40 or 50 miles an hour. It'll obliterate this car, you know, especially once you get up to 100. It'll just, I imagine that car's got to be, you know, probably 5 or 10 miles an hour faster in a quarter mile. But this car is probably close to the same ET, you know, because the Ferrari will spin the tires, right? It gets no traction. It's rear-wheel drive. You know, even though it's a mid-engine car, it's struggling for traction, right? So that's where this car has the advantage, right? It's in the setup, the way the car's set up for that first few feet. But after that, you know, as a guy who really likes really fast cars, you know, super high performance cars, this car just does not satisfy me when I'm on the highway. Yeah, I mean, I could go the route of my 997 like I did and modify it. You know, you could easily modify this car and add some power, bring some power to the table. You know, do the bolt-on turbos and everything else. But I've gotten to the point where when you're spending this kind of money, I want to have a car that's fast, you know, out of the box, right? There's a lot of other cars in this category this car competes with. You know, look at this. I'm driving over these roads, and it's just like I feel like I'm driving in a bouncy truck. I don't get it. You know, how come a Ferrari, right, can drive over these bumps so smoothly, and this car is like jarring and uncomfortable, right? And it's going to give you like a kidney failure from driving over all these bumps. I just don't get it. Anyway, let me conclude by saying that for a daily driving car, the 991 is really a great car. It has a lot of really cool features, a great combination of reliability, all-weather capacity, and a really tremendous all-weather performance, right? You can get on this car in the rain. You can, you know, this car is up there in the top cars around the Nürburgring. You can go around any racetrack. You can, you know, you have all your creature comforts, everything you could possibly imagine in one car. But it does have those 5 things I really don't like about the car. I guess, you know, in the end of the day, when you're looking at any vehicle, there are 5 things they don't like. I'm gonna tell you though, I do have the 997 turbo, and it's really hard for me to find fault with anything, except for the fact that it is a car from 2007, and the infotainment system, the radio, the climate control system is a little outdated. But it is a 12-year-old car, right? So that's to be expected. That would be the only nitpicking I'd have about a 997 turbo. A 997 turbo, to me, after all the cars I've owned a lot, is probably the best car I've ever owned, by far. I mean, it's really an amazing car. This car is a good car, but it's not a great car. And I think if you look at the people who really know cars, and who really are into cars, you'll see that their review of the 991 turbo is the same. Like Nick Murray, who I respect a lot, in his videos, he likes the Carrera 2 better than the 991 turbo, for obvious reasons, right? This car has a lot of weight, a lot of bulk, and a lot of complications, and the driving dynamic is really numb. It's just not there. You really don't feel it. Not a great car.